This is the brand new Silva Expedition Neo compass. Well, I say brand new, it's 2025 now, and these compasses actually came out last year, but they're still not on general release, so they're hard to get hold of. Silva has told me that they won't have any in stock for at least the next few months. So it depends on when you watch this video as to whether you'll be able to buy one of these. I got this from an industry contact. That's the best way of putting it. Firstly, a quick disclaimer. Everything in my videos is my personal property, purchased with my own money, and I'm not sponsored by, nor do I receive any benefits at all from any compass manufacturer. As I said, this is the Silva Expedition Neo, and in this video I'll cover how to use this compass with a map and also without, how to adjust for declination, and I'll also do a quick subjective review and a look at whether it's worth paying around 60% more than the standard Silva Expedition compass. I'll also go through every single part and feature that I can find on this compass. At the moment, I've just had a quick look and I've identified 23 distinct parts. So if I miss anything, let me know in the comments. This may be quite a lengthy video, so I'll put the timestamps in the description box. So if you want to, you can use these to jump to any section in the video. Okay, let's start with the obvious question. Why is it called the Expedition Neo? Well, the first part's easy. You know, it's called an expedition compass as the base plate is the same as the standard Silva Expedition, which is this one. Although the Neo does have slightly bolder fonts and thicker lines. In some parts of the world, the Silva Expedition is actually called the Silva Explorer. As you probably know, virtually all traditional compasses, their needles, are made from alloys such as alnico, which is a mixture of aluminium, nickel and cobalt. Other needles are made from ferrite, which is a chromatic based material, or stainless steel, etc., etc. However, this compass is different because its needle contains an element called neodymium, hence the name, Neo. The needle is made from an alloy, which is it's a blend of neodymium, iron and boron. Later in the video I'll look into the needle's properties and try and find out whether it's a real improvement or is it just a marketing gimmick. We'll see. So firstly, so you know what I'm talking about later on, let's go through all the parts of this compass that I can find. As you can see, it's a base plate compass. It's called a base plate because everything is either printed or engraved onto or attached to a cast acrylic sheet of plastic, which is the actual base plate. As I said, this design of the base plate is the same as the standard expedition compass. The Silva Neo also comes with a mirror version, but I haven't been able to get hold of one of those. So let's have a look. We've got the metric scale, we've got the luminous direction marker, and we've got the direction arrow. Then we've got the 1 to 25, 1 to 50, 1 to 40k roamers, a 1 to 24 measure and a magnifying area. There's a marker hole and the luminous index with an imperial ruler, the declination screw, a bezel marked in degrees and the orienting arrow. There are luminous direction markers and the magnetic needle has got luminous strip at the end of it. There's declination scales and a declination arrow and a lanyard attachment. There are orienting lines also inside the dial. On the back of the compass there are silicon feet which stop the compass from sliding around, and also on the lanyard there is a small screwdriver which, if you pull it apart, this is used for turning the declination screw. Also on the lanyard are various measuring scales, 1 to 24, 25 and 50. There's also 1 to 62.5, which is used for it's the old style 1 inch to the mile maps. Some of the items on the compass are luminous so that you can use them at night time. So that's all the parts of the compass that I've been able to find. So next, let's talk about how to actually use this compass. Now, a very common use of a compass is to point it in some direction and then follow it to your direct destination. This is called following a bearing. Some people call a bearing an azimuth. If you want to follow a bearing to a feature on your map, unless someone's told you the bearing, you'll need to take the bearing from the map itself. So let's go through how we do this. As an example, let's have a look. Let's say that I want to go from the trig point on No Fell to the nature reserve to the side of Malham Tarn. The first thing to do is place your compass onto the map so that the edge of it is touching both the starting point and the destination. A quick note here, by the way. Some people say that the map has to be orientated to the north, pointing in some direction, but that's actually not necessary. In fact, it makes absolutely no difference. The bearing will be exactly the same whichever way the map is pointing. Okay, just to get that out of the way. Next, what I do is I rotate the bezel until the orienting lines inside the dial are pointing straight up the map. And then I read the bearing on the bezel by looking at the number directly under the index mark. And in this case, I've got a bearing of 132 degrees. I'll give you a quick tip here, by the way. To get the most accurate bearing, make sure that the orienting lines inside the bezel, inside the dial, run parallel to the map's vertical grid lines. These are the eastings. Before we go any further, we have to talk about declination. As you've just seen, I've taken a bearing from a map, but before you can follow it, in most parts of the world, you'll need to adjust this. Declination is the difference between the direction the vertical lines on your map point at and the direction that the magnetic needle on your compass points to. I've done lots and lots of videos explaining declination in much more detail. In the UK at the moment, there is currently very little declination, so we don't tend to worry about it. However, in most parts of the world, you will need to adjust the bearing you've taken from the map to account for the local magnetic declination. Some compasses, including this one, allow you to set the declination semi-permanently if you want to. But just for now, we'll do it manually. And since we're going from a map to a compass, grid to mag, there is a rule. If your area has a west declination, add the declination value to the bearing. In this case, let's say we've got a bearing of 5 degrees west. We've just taken 132, so we adjust the bezel to 137. If your declination is east, you subtract the declination value. So in this case again, let's say we've got 5 degrees east, we would adjust the 132 bearing that we've taken from the map to 127, okay? If necessary, we've just adjusted our compass. And the next thing to do is look at how we use the compass to actually follow it. The first thing to say is that you really shouldn't get into the habit of holding your compass like this. Yeah. And think, I'll go that way. You know, this way is very prone to errors. I would suggest that you hold the compass in front of you at chest height with both hands, and then turn your body until the red end of the needle is directly over the orienting arrow. This is often, some people call this putting red in the shed. Keep the compass centered in front of you, not off to the side. So it's like this. So when red is in the shed, your shoulders, your chest, your hips, your knees, everything should be facing in the direction that you need to walk. And this helps you, it prevents you veering off course because you're facing the way that you actually want to walk. Now, look ahead, pick a feature along your bearing, a tree or a rock or a hill, and walk towards it. When you arrive at that, following your bearing, pick another feature and keep repeating that until you reach your destination. So it's always holding it like this. Oh, just a quick point here, by the way. I get asked this quite often. What is a feature? Because I say the word feature quite often. The answer is simple. A feature is anything that you can touch. As an example, on a map, a wall or a river is shown and you can touch them, so they are features. Your map will also show political boundaries or the name of a town, but you can't touch them, so they aren't features. I actually made a video about this very topic, and I'll put the link in the description box. As I mentioned, some compasses, you can set them semi-permanently, and the Neo allows you to do that if you want to. So now let's go through how to do this. Inside the dial, you can see E dec and W dec, so west declination, east declination, with a scale between them. You can set your compass to the local declinations, using this scale. Let's say that your declination is 12 degrees east. To set your compass, what you do is you do this. Separate the lanyard, so the lanyard clasp, and inside you'll see this very tiny little screwdriver hidden inside. Use the screwdriver to turn the adjustment screws on top of the bezel until the small line at the south end of the magnetic needle, the south end of the orienting needle, by the way, is actually at 12. Okay, if the local declination is 8 degrees west, turn the screw until the line at the end of the arrow is at the 8 degrees west on the scale. And that's it. Your compass is now set. So when you take a bearing from a map, you won't need to manually adjust for declination. Just put red in the shed and you're good to go. Just a quick point on this topic while we're talking about it. If you adjust your declination setting on this compass, as you've seen, this changes the way the direction arrow is pointing, the orienting arrow is pointing. So when you take a bearing from a map, make sure that you use the orienting lines inside the dial, not the arrow. Next, you can use this compass to measure distances on a map, to find out how far it is from one place to another. There are two methods of doing this. You can either use the roamers, which are the right angle shapes at the top of the compass, or you can use the metric ruler for longer distances. Let's say that I'm here on this trig point here on Darnbrook Fell, and I'll show you where it is by using, I'll use the marking arrow, the marking hole. Put the hole over the feature like this, and then use the crosshairs to make sure that it's centered. If you want, I can then mark that particular feature. Let's say that you want to know the distance from that trig point to the center of these three small plantations. Since it's a 1 to 50,000 scale, I'll use the 1 to 50,000 roamer. But as you can see, the roamer isn't long enough in this case. So I'll switch to using the metric ruler on the side of the compass. The distance that I measured is 22 millimeters. Remember that on all metric maps, 1 millimeter always equals the map scale. So this is a 50,000 map, so each millimeter represents 50 meters on the ground. So we just multiply the number of millimeters by the map scale, which is 22 times 50, so it's 1,100 meters to the plantation. The last item on the compass that I'm going to look at today is the inclinometer, which is this thing that moves inside. And this will tell you what angle the compass is being held at. You can use that then to find the angle of a slope. To use the inclinometer, rotate the bezel until 90 degrees is next to the index mark, okay? Point the compass up or down the slope, and the arrow at the end of the inclinometer will tell you the angle of that particular slope. It's actually really simple. You don't have to use the inclinometer to get the angle of a slope. I made a video showing how to do this, and I'll put the link in the description box. There are many other things that you can do with the compass. This is just a really quick run through. But today we've gone through the basic functions of this new Silva Expedition Neo compass. So I hope after watching this that you would now feel confident in using it if you went out and bought one. Oh, on that point, by the way, I'm not recommending that you go and buy one. So now let's do a quick review of this Silva Expedition compass and discover, is it a good or a bad compass? But first, it's time, because we're in England, it's time for a cup of tea. I've been talking too long, I think. So tea break first, and then I'll come back to you. It's the law in England. Now, obviously, this is a subjective review. So these are just my ideas, and some people may disagree with them. I was using this compass for a few days on a trip in Scotland last week, and this is my review. Is this a good or a bad compass? In my opinion, I would say this is a really, really good compass. Now, I use compasses in my working life. I'm a navigation instructor, so I'm used to looking at them very critically. And as you know, if you've watched any of my other videos, if there is something wrong with a compass, I don't mind pointing it out. But I can't actually find anything wrong with this compass. I'm not saying that you should buy one. I never, ever tell anybody where to spend their money or what to buy. There are no links to Amazon pages or websites in this YouTube channel. Nobody pays me commission. So, and also, as I've said, I don't have any connection to Silva or any other compass manufacturers. Of course, there are things that I think could be improved. And you may find this a bit strange because my suggestions for improvement wouldn't actually make it any more useful in the UK. But I would suggest that Silva should change the layout of the base plate. When I get home, I'll put some graphics on the screen just to make it simpler to understand what I'm talking about. At the moment, the base plate looks like this, yeah? And I have to ask why. This layout means that no one in places such as the USA can use all the features of this compass with a standard 1:24K map. That's the scale used on the USGS 7.5 minutes quadrangle maps. I don't know why. Basically, Silva is saying to anyone in one of the biggest markets in the world, you can buy our compasses, but they won't work with your map. It just seems a little strange to me, that I don't know why. So here's my suggestion. Firstly, make more space on the base plate by simply combining the 1:25 and the 1:50 Romas. They're exactly the same, so you don't need to print them twice. I'm never quite sure why compass manufacturers do that. Next, remove the 1:40,000 scale, because people who tend to use that scale are intermediate or advanced navigators, and they can use the metric ruler just as easily as a Roma. And then what I would do is I would definitely add a 1:24 scale, a Roma, to this compass. So what do you think? It would make a much simpler Roma, which can be used on virtually any map anywhere in the world. Oh well. Another idea I've had is to swap the magnifying area and the marker hole, and this would give you room to put a parallax line on, which is one of the most useful features on some Silva compasses. It's also one of the most commonly used features. Why is it being removed on the Explorer and on the Neo? I honestly don't know. Anyway, that's my idea for the Roma design. Silva or Sunto or any other compass manufacturers, you can have this idea for free. As it's on this YouTube video, I've released it into the public domain, so there's no copyright. Oh, another suggestion for Silva: remove this small hole in the back of the bezel. There isn't one on the standard Explorer, but there is on the Neo, and this will very quickly get filled with grime, grease, mud, etc., which will stop the bezel turning eventually. Now then, does anybody think that Silva will take any notice at all of these suggestions? No. Oh well. I still think it's a really good compass, you know. But if you remember at the start of the video, I said that the Expedition Neo has a different type of needle, and this is what makes it different from virtually all other compasses. Is this a good idea? Again, these are just my subjective opinions, so other people may disagree. I'm not sure really how to put this. I really should plan these videos, shouldn't I? You know, I should. I should make a script and a plot run through and put it on a clipboard. I like a clipboard, or maybe on, what do they call them, a teleprompter, attached to a nearby tree or screwed into a rock or something. Can you imagine walking up a mountain with a laptop and a teleprompter strapped to your rucksack? I'm not sure they actually make waterproof laptops or teleprompters. I'll have to ask Paul Messner. Paul Messner, by the way, he knows everything there is to know about outdoor equipment. My equipment is really simple. I've just got a map and a compass. I'll put the link to Paul's YouTube channel in the description box. It really is one of the best YouTube channels. Well, again, in my opinion. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, just my opinion. There is a well-known saying in English: if it's not broke, don't fix it. And in this case, this raises the question: has Silva attempted to solve a problem that doesn't exist? Let's start with the standard expedition compass. When you turn the base plate like this, the needle continues to point at the magnetic North Pole. That is exactly what it's supposed to do. It has no other purpose. It simply points at the magnetic North Pole, as it was designed to, and it does it really, really well. So what is the benefit of creating a compass needle containing neodymium? Well, we all know that two magnets attract each other, sort of north-south, and the stronger their combined magnetic fields, the stronger the force pulling them together. So if you increase the strength of one of the magnets, this will increase the pull between them. Are we okay with this up to now? Now, think about the Earth as a giant magnet and your compass needle as a smaller magnet. It means that the north end of your compass needle is attracted to the Earth's magnetic field, you know, the North Pole, when you're walking around the hills. And this field remains relatively constant. So the only way to increase the force between the compass and the magnetic North Pole is to strengthen the magnetism in the needle itself. If you enhance the needle's magnetism, it will align to the North Pole quickly. And this will potentially save you fractions of a second during a day's walk in the hills. You know, fractions. And this is where neodymium comes in, as it becomes extremely magnetic when you combine it with iron and boron. And this gives these new needles a much stronger magnetic pull than a standard compass needle. I'm going to take a guess here. I don't know, I'm going to guess, based on the way other magnets are made from almost the same material. The composition of the Neo's needle likely includes around 25% neodymium, which gives it a strong magnetic properties and also resistance to demagnetization. The iron content will be around 60 to 70%, and this gives the needle strength, and it also enhances its magnetic properties. There will also be a small amount of boron, not much, about 1 or 2%. This would act like the mortar in a brick wall, and it holds and locks everything together. So due to the inclusion of neodymium, there is a stronger pull towards the Earth's magnetic field, speeding up the needle. But the question is, does a stronger magnet make a better compass needle? I don't know, as most good quality compass needles settle within a few seconds anyway, which is, you know, let's face it, this is fast enough for most people who are walking around the hills. I do know that compasses get some very rough treatment. They get dropped, they're carried around in rucksacks, they're bashed against trees and rocks, and the needle has to be able to withstand this. So we'll have to wait a few years to see if this new needle is rugged enough to cope with all that sort of stuff. Another major advantage of neodymium is its resistance to demagnetization. Well, that's what we're told, but is it true? So just for you, I put this to the test. Yesterday, I put two compasses, a standard Expedition 4 and this Silva Neo, inside a bag in the trunk of my car, which is a hybrid. So it has a big battery, which produces a strong magnetic field. And I left the bag overnight. I'll cut to some B-roll, and as you can see, this is the result. The standard compass needle has been completely ruined, but the Expedition Neo was unaffected. So that's a definite benefit, and hopefully it should stop compasses having to be replaced if you forget to store them correctly. I can't really see any other benefits. As an example, the Silva website says that the Expedition Neo will cost 60% more than the standard Expedition, and both compasses have the same accuracy of 1 degree. Oh, when I was looking at their website, by the way, maybe somebody should tell Silva that there is no IP classification of waterproof. IP, or ingress protection, is a number, it's not words. For something to be waterproof, it needs to be IP67 or higher. Oh well, that's a different video. So, back to the original question. If a standard needle works perfectly well, is there a need to change it? Not in my view. As the saying goes, if it's not broken, don't fix it. If you want the latest model of compass with a needle with a stronger magnetic attraction, go for it, buy one. But as I've said, in my opinion, this is a really good compass, but I don't think there's an urgent need to replace your traditional compass. Thanks for watching.